Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli, the computer guy, here for your daily dose of the roars as I scream about the idiocy of the industry I have a passive-aggressive relationship with. That's right, I come here every day to scream about the world of technology in order to fund a Silicon Dojo, free to the end-user, hands-on technology education in Durham, North Carolina. If you're interested in attending these in-person classes, take a look at silicondojo.com to see what our current schedule is. If you would like to support those classes, there is a donor box link down below. And with that, let's get into the roaring. So I think as we are going into this particular article, my personal lived experience doing in-person education in Durham, North Carolina might shine a light on the problem, right? One of the big problems we have right now in the tech world is everybody's crying because they can't get a job, right? All of the employees, all of the wannabe employees out there are crying because they can't get hired, and all the bosses out there are crying because their employees don't want to actually do the work. And what I found, right, I've owned my own business, I've been a boss, I've been an educator, I've done all of this stuff, and what I found in the world is most people want a job in the tech sector. They don't actually want to do the work that's required for that job. I think about this with Silicon Dojo. So we've had 4 classes up until this point, right? We've had a class on Olama, a class on OpenAI's API, a class on SQL with AI, and then we just did a class on what do we do? Web scraping. We just did a class on web scraping. We're going to be doing a class on REST APIs to extend AI capabilities in a couple of weeks. And the interesting thing when I do these classes is the first half is supposed to be the seminar, and then the second half is supposed to be the hands-on work. Now, to be clear, if you've come to these classes, the seminar is a little bit longer than I mean them to be. I do need to shorten the seminars a little bit. But anyways, one of the things that I find fascinating, let's just say fascinating is the word, is we go through the seminar. So I teach them how to use Olama with Python, and OpenAI with Python, and SQL statements with Python, and web scraping with Python, and all this other kind of stuff. And then we get to the end of it, and I'm like, okay, that is the end of this seminar. Whoever wants to stay, I will now give you all of my attention to try to get you up to speed. If you simply need to be able to install VS Code, we'll get VS Code installed onto your system. If you need the Python extension, if you need to understand how to install modules, if you just basically need a primer of Python, I'll help you with all of that. If you want to do the code, the little labs that we have, I'll sit down and I'll try to show you where you missed the fucking comma, right? I am going to give you the next couple hours of my time to make sure you haven't just sat through a class, but you actually learn the material. And everybody's like, yeah, okay. And then they all leave. They all leave. I do have to say, I had one student that stayed for the web scraping class. We got VS Code installed on the system. We got VS Code and the Python extension installed on the system. So that was a win. But I want you to think about that, right? And that's one of the big problems we have in the technology world right now, is we have everybody that wants the jobs. They want the jobs. They don't want to do the work. And the work is a pain in the fucking ass. Like when I do these classes, when I create these classes, right? So I create labs. I create labs to either solve problems or to simulate solving problems. And to create these classes, I mean, it takes a week or two, right? Just sitting there, figuring out the material, what material should be taught, how you're gonna line up the material, then coming up with the examples and then trying to strip it down, give it enough information that's actually valuable, but strip it down so it's not really confusing, right? That takes real time to create. And the interesting thing that I see with a lot of folks is that they just don't want to put that time into it. They're like, you know what, Eli, I know. Look, Eli, I just spent 2 hours listening to you. I know now. And you're like, that's not how this works. That's not how this works. You spent 2 hours listening to me. Now you need to spend about 20 hours actually tapping crap out to make sure it gets through your head. But one of the things that I see, and again, I've seen this for a long time. This isn't just my students. Don't be like, oh, Eli's dogging on Durham. No, I love Durham. Durham's wonderful. But I have seen this just across the board, right? I was doing these one-on-one calls with people, and it was amazing, like with a lot of people trying to get jobs. And I'd be like, okay, well, when was the last time you put anything up on GitHub? And they'd be like, a year ago. And I'd be like, okay. And again, look, I'm not trying to be that judgmental. I'm a little judgmental, but like, I'm not trying to be that judgmental. And so I'm like, okay, well, if it's been a year since you put stuff on GitHub, understand the recruiters and everybody else, GitHub is your portfolio. So you need to start doing little projects. I want you out of you every week to create a little project, publish that to GitHub, rinse and repeat. Show potential employers that you can see problems that need to be solved, that you can come up with a solution, and that you can actually ship, quote unquote, ship a product for that solution. Because that's really what we do at the end of the day. And then I get the people, and they're, oh, why should I have to do all of that work to get a job? So I don't. And this, my friends, is why I stopped doing the one-on-one Zoom calls. Because I just do not want to swear at people all day long. Anyways, but I think this is a big problem that we're seeing. And so what we got right now, coming up from, as you believe this is Business Insider, is the gruesome new data on tech jobs. This is the kind of exciting stuff I like to see. And basically it just says the stuff that I've been saying for a while, right? We are saturated with people that want to be in the tech industry. Many of the people that are in the tech industry don't actually want to do the work. Budgets are being constrained massively. Again, with this whole thing with this AI boom, right? AI. One of the things you have to understand is that is sucking the resources out of other niches within the tech world. So AI is getting $1.4 trillion. But as I said, Dell and HPE, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, they've actually gotten downgraded on the stock market. They're getting hammered on the stock market because they don't even think they're going to be able to get the amount of RAM that they need. They're talking about Dell only receiving 40% of the RAM that they order in order to actually be able to fulfill their obligations. And so one of the big things to understand right now is even in the tech world, like AI is taking off, but that's vacuuming out resources from other areas. And this is the thing you have to understand. Again, it's about the tech world, right? Let's see here. Indeed, the world's largest job site just released its big annual study. The data on tech jobs is pretty gruesome. Just the way I like it. The outlook for data and analytics jobs is particularly grim. Do you know why I like this data to be gruesome? Do you know why I like this data to be grim? So we go back to people being in the world of tech who actually want to do this fucking job. You don't understand. I've gotten so frustrated really over the past decade with so many people being in the tech world, having zero fucking interest in technology, but spouting off their stupid ass opinions all the time. You don't know how many events I've been to and meetups and all this other stuff where you just sit there and you get inundated with people's opinions that don't know shit about fucking shit. To say that all they know is their stack is a gross exaggeration. They barely know the fucking product they're supposed to be using in order to do whatever it is they do with their company. But by God, they're tech employees, so they're gonna hammer the hell out of you. I cannot fucking wait for the day all of this dead wood is stripped out of this industry, and the people that are going to the meetups and going to the events and that quote unquote do tech are the ones, wait for it, actually do tech. Anyways, that's one of the nice parts about this, right? Let's start with the overall job market. This chart, which includes Indeed's job posting index, shows a steady decline in available jobs since the pandemic boom of 2022, right? So basically we see here, we had, the job market in 2020, we had the pandemic happen, and then for some reason, with the entire world being shut down and the supply chain being fucked up and all of that, Hiring went through the roof. Doesn't that make a lot of sense, right? When the global economy is going to hell, when supply chains are being fucking eviscerated, when you have a global plague, wouldn't you expect the hiring to go through the roof? Yeah, anyway, so the hiring went through the roof, and now, as we can see, it's been going down and down and down and down ever since. Because this was stupid. This was stupid. See, what should have happened here is, see how it's like da-da, and then it goes down? And then maybe a blip, maybe like to here. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be like some boost, but that was fucking stupid. Like, that's just, anyways. Dig deeper, and you can see that the tech job market has done a lot worse than some sectors. Yes, because overhiring. We take a look at this. Job postings look very different across the sectors. So we can see this. This shows healthcare, retail and hospitality, and technology, right? So healthcare, still higher. Job postings out there, retail and hospitality. I mean, I'm not really sure tech should be competing with retail and hospitality. No offense, but come on now. Anyways, but that's higher than tech. And as we can see, tech is lagging down here. And this is going to be one of the big things that you hear too, is this whole idea that anthropologists have a better chance of getting a job than computer coders will. Data and analytics jobs really stand out though. The sector had a jobs posting index of 60, the lowest of all sectors indeed tracked as of the end of October. That means there are 40% fewer data and analytics jobs opening than there were before the pandemic. So that's the interesting thing here, right? So the pandemic was the pandemic. Don't ask, I don't know. It was a pandemic. God knows what happened. The interesting thing, though, is the question is what was the baseline before the pandemic? That was a little bit more, quote unquote, sane economics, a sane economy, I suppose. So what they're saying is that the data folks are 40% below that point in time. And I think this actually does make sense. Not just with the boost, all the stuff going on in the economy and all that kind of thing, but actually with AI itself. So I talk about AI a lot, and I talk about, I snark on AI. Like, I don't stop snarking on AI. I fucking hate this whole AI fraud. When I talk about the AI fraud, though, I'm talking about the financial horse crap that's going on in the AI world. Not the actual technology itself, right? AI, quote unquote, AI, the AI tech stack is very valuable. There is a lot of cool things that this tech stack can do. And if you focus on specific areas, especially, it can be massively disruptive, right? This whole idea that all code is going to be written by Claude or whatever, and that CEOs are going to vibe code is fucking stupid. Right? Just like I tell my viewers who are employees, right, that you should fucking respect your CEO. You should treat your CEO like a human being. Just because you do not understand your CEO's job does not mean that they're not working their asses off, right? I talk about that all the time. On the flip side, motherfuckers, dear CEOs of the world, you ain't fucking computer coders, right? How arrogantly stupid does a CEO have to be to think that they can vibe code shit? Why do I need a development department when I can go on Claude and code my own projects? Jesus Christ. Here's a warning. Here's a warning. I'm not saying to quit your job. I'm not saying to quit your job. It is a bad job market. I am telling you when you need to put your resume out there. If your fucking CEO goes anywhere near Claude or Replit or Lovable or any of that horseshit, if they get a fucking account to one of those platforms, put your fucking resume out on LinkedIn or whatever else. Get off that sinking fucking ship, right? So to be clear, CEO, this whole idea that, dev departments are gonna go away because of vibe coding is horse crap. But as I say that, you do have to understand there is a value to LLMs. There is a value to this kind of stuff. And one of the places that there is value in is in the data and analytics department. The big problem that we've been having for 15 years now is this whole idea. Remember when data was the new oil? Right? There's always a new oil. Data is the new oil, and VR is the new oil, and AI is the new oil, and blockchain is the new oil. Anyways, a while ago, there was this idea It is funny to say now. A while ago, remember when data was the new oil? Anyways, there's a while ago that data was the new oil. And so all these companies were collecting all of this data. One of the big problems we have in the modern world is these companies fetish-size data, all the data that they can get. But then the problem is when you have that data, right, it's just sitting in databases, right? You have a whole bunch of tables with columns and records and the rest of it. Great, now what, right? And so that's why you needed data folks and you needed analytics folks to go and take that just geyser of data and try to put it into some kind of human readable format so that the executives can make decisions. As I've talked about before, right, it is not about the technology and that type of thing, it is about the product and solution, right? The CEO doesn't need, data centers full of data. What they need is they need charts and they need other things that they can look at and go, number go up or number go down. And that correlates with this number going up and number going down. Ergo, this is what we're going to do for the next year. And the interesting thing with these LLMs and these AI models is, yeah, I mean, look, it's not perfect. Believe me, I'm not telling you to get rid of your data department. But yeah, LLMs can do that shit. Say, hey, here's the data. Tell me something interesting about the data, right? Like having CEOs or executives being able to converse relatively naturally with basically data, right? How does weather correspond to sales? Right? If you're a data person, right, there's these SQL statements, you got joins, you may have to connect different databases, do all kinds of fancy stuff. If I can just sit there as a CEO and say, okay, I know the weather is going to be warm this weekend, how do sales correlate with weather? And it says when the temperature is 10 degrees higher than it normally is, you get 5% more sales. I can go, oh, okay, I need to order more inventory. That actually is somebody's job right there. So it's not, yes, this is one of the places that AI is going to screw a lot of people up. Even worse, there is still a rising number of applications per job in the sector, according to Indeed. This is one of the things that I found fascinating over the past 10 years, this whole push for like data analytics people, like a lot. Every time you turn around, there was a new certification for data analytics people. So you have a lot of people that want a job in the technology world, but they don't really want to do the hard stuff, the hard stuff, right? They want to do the stuff that they want to do. Data analytics is one of those places where you can have a technical skill set, but it doesn't have to actually be that in-depth and get a pretty decent job. So you have had a lot of people go after these certifications and degree programs and whatever else. As the jobs for those are continuing to drop, the number of people applying for the jobs that still exist are going through the roof, and you get the whole supply-demand capitalism thing. These types of roles include business analyst, right? Data analyst, data scientist, and business intelligence developer. Indeed's data shows a clear mismatch between employer demand and worker supply here. Years of investment in data science training have left a glut of skilled candidates just as hiring appetite cools. And that's one of the things I've talked with you folks before about, the world of business, and world of getting a job, right? Do people need whatever skill you have, right? If you want to be a PHP coder, so you go out there and you're like, I want to be a coder, right? Let's go back 2 years ago. Let's go back 2 years ago when we actually had a decent job market, right? You could go out and you could learn PHP. You could learn PHP. And then once you learn PHP, you could probably get maybe a $50,000 or $60,000 job in the 2020s. Right? Or you could go out and you could learn JavaScript and React, take about the same amount of time, about the same amount of effort, and you'd have the potential of making 125 per year. Right? Why? Because, right, PHP is a skill set. React is a skill set, right? They need more fucking React developers than they need PHP developers. Look, that's just how it is, right? And so again, that's gonna be one of the interesting things going forward, is as we see the different components of the tech industry basically get absolutely eviscerated, but other components might be trucking along and doing pretty well, right? Again, with the AI world, if you're building out AI data centers, right, you're slotting hardware for AI data centers, you probably got all the overtime in the world you need. If you're working for Dell and you're assembling servers for small businesses, you might be getting furloughed. Right? It's just simply the niche that you're in. Quote, workers who received that training are likely to continue to look for jobs that match their skills regardless of the pullback in postings. And this is something to think about for my students, if you're watching these videos, right? Why do people keep trying to get the jobs that they can't get? Because that's the certification that they have. Here's the thing, at the end of the day, if you're not gonna get the job, wouldn't it be better to go off and start learning other things so maybe you can get a job in a different sector than just doing the exact same crap? And this is one of the things that I saw when I did these one-on-one calls with people. It was amazing. Eli, this is what I know. It's like, yeah, I get that. And I actually have some empathy. I have some empathy, right? I have a lot of sympathy for you, but they're not hiring for that. So learn something else. Eli, this is what I know. Then we go through this for about half an hour. And then I'm like, okay, fair enough. You wanted this a call for my opinion. I gave you my opinion. You do what you want in life. Because it is often difficult, costly, and time-consuming to change careers, said Corey Stahl, a senior economist at Indeed. And with this, how costly is it in the modern world? There's so much education that's freely available, at least silicondojo.com and such. But again, it's one of those things that you have to do. I think the other thing too, when you think about this cost and difficult, is what if you don't want to do the work anyway, right? What if you don't really like the tech sector? You don't like any of us. You look at me and you're fucking horrified. You think I'm mean. Oh my golly, I get so many snot bubbles from dumbass fucking viewers. And they're like, oh my God, you're mean. Like, oh, buckos. You definitely have not heard my stories. I am not mean. On this side of the camera, I'm definitely not mean, right? But you get a lot of people like, right? So you have a lot of people out there, they don't really like us. I mean, truly, they don't really like us. They don't really like doing the work, and they can barely keep up. Right? So think about that type of person. And then you tell them that they have to reskill, Oh, you have all of this, let's say, React skill set. Well, the latest thing, with AI or whatever, maybe you need to jump over to C#. Lots of C# jobs out there. C#, woo, woo. Anyway, I'm just saying, there's a lot of C# jobs out there. Anyways, maybe you have to reskill for C#, or maybe you have to reskill for something else, right? They already don't like us. They already don't like the work. It was already pretty difficult for them to get where they are. And now you're telling these poor bastards that they have to reskill? That is just gonna be a bridge too far. And that is gonna be one of the things that washes this people out of our industry. And I would argue makes this industry a hell of a lot better, right? When you sit there and you have an argument and you're like, man, I understand your argument, I just don't get where you're coming from. And they're like, look, I just had to deploy 50 servers, right? When we were deploying the 50 servers with this blah, 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 I can tell you fucking 40% of the damn things failed, right? That's an argument, that's an opinion. Hey, I like the idea of the LLM, but I can't parse the data that's coming back. And then they're like, well, why are you using that model? Like, think about this with structured data. LLMs, there's this thing called structured data, getting data back in an easy way for your code to understand how to deal with it. Something called JSON, right? So there's a Pi 3 model. So when we do Silicon Dojo, there's a Pi 3 model we use a lot just because it's really doesn't require a lot of resources, but it's shit. To call it shit is to be polite. And then there's another model we use, GPT-OSS, that is AI's open source model that is actually really good, but it requires a lot of resources. The interesting thing is Pi 3, shockingly, does a garbage job at structured data. Do not use Pi 3 for structured data. Surprisingly enough, GPT-OSS, fucking phenomenal for structured data, as long as you figure out the prompts properly, right? So if we're sitting here having an argument, I'm like, fuck LLMs, I know they're supposed to be amazing and whatever, but when I try to get data back that my code can actually parse, it's always shit, so it's taking more time than it's worth. And then you go like, wait a minute, what model are you using, right? We're using GPT-OSS, and I can tell you in production, it sends back structured data in a great format, and we only fail about 99 or about 1% of the time, and we have a validation routine in there. So then when it fails, we re-ask the question or whatever else. So I'm surprised you're so anti-LLM for structured data. And they go, oh, GPT-OSS, huh? Yeah, we've been using GPT. I heard about that. Oh my God, there's like 1,500 fucking models out there. Yeah, I know there's a lot of models. We were really happy you found GPT-OSS. Fuck, maybe we should use GPT-OSS. Imagine that conversation. Imagine having that fucking conversation over a beer. Isn't that a fun conversation to have? Isn't that much better than this tech bro horse shit that we get about AI? Well, AI is gonna take over the world. Why? When I use AI, it's fucking quirky as hell. I mean, it's a false force multiplier, but it's not going to take over. Well, I believe. Why do you believe? Because I work at Meta. Okay, so you work at Meta, which is cool, but you're not really explaining why the technology is going to do what you say it's going to do. Anyways, right? So we are gonna get rid of those people. That puts a smile on my face, right? The pullback in data and analytics jobs has been more dramatic than in other occupations. Employers went on a hiring spree during the post-pandemic boom. Since then, many firms simply haven't needed to replace these workers as much. Quote, this combination of fewer postings and more applications suggests that the market is competitive, Stahl warned. Quote, finding the right job may take some time, and your wage growth is likely to be weaker than it was a few years ago in these roles. As I say, I met somebody at All Things Open. It was interesting. They were looking for jobs, and to be clear, they said there were more than enough jobs out there for them to go to. They work for a company they don't particularly like. They put their resume out there, and there were a lot of jobs they could get hired for at 50% of the current salary. So, glass half full or whatever, but that's the other kind of thing that you're gonna have to be thinking about. And so I think this is gonna be one of the big things to be considering, right? As a technology professional, is do you really want to be a technology professional? Do you really want to be a technology professional? Is this where you want to be, right? I talk about my career, not just my job, my career, right? I started off in the Army. When I got out of the Army, I actually got my degree in criminal justice. I did not plan to go down this route, right? But then somebody said, hey, you should really look at this MCSE program. This could really help your career. I was getting done with my degree. So I was like, okay, I'll do this MCSE thing. And then I was able to get a job as a 24-year-old, right? I could travel around the country. I had a direct line to the travel department. Fucking executives of the company that have been with the company longer than I've been alive, damn near, were asking me for favors, right? All of that stuff. And it was like, and I liked that and I enjoyed that. And then when the dot-com bust happened, trying to figure out what to do, went back to being a consultant. Like I had no idea, didn't become a consultant. I put up pull tab signs. One thing led to another, and that made me a consultant, right? The Great Recession happened, had to rethink things. What do I do? Again, okay, so now I know all this stuff from technology. What if we create a platform for on-demand, technology videos? Been doing that for a long time now. Again, Silicon Dojo is my current thing, right? When I say I enjoy the technology industry, think about this. I've done everything from the Army to traveling around the country in the enterprise world, to working for other enterprise companies, to being a consultant, to having my own company with employees, to creating my own education platform that flopped, to becoming a YouTube star, to now going to Durham every couple of weeks in order to do in-person education, right? This is a technology career. And that's what you have to think about, right? When the world changes, are you willing to reskill, right? Electronics in the mid-90s was on its way out. So I got my MCSE in 2000, right? Things change. Do you really want to continue riding this rodeo bull? It's a real question. There's no snark. There's no meanness to say maybe it's time for you to get off. What I am going to enjoy, and what I do enjoy about this mess, is it's gonna force a lot of people that don't really want to be here anyway to get the hell out of the game. And I think that's going to clean up a lot of stuff going on in the tech world. That's one of the things I've noticed lately is how many people work in the tech sector, quote unquote, work in the tech sector. So again, when I started in technology, at least in the enterprise world, right? You know, we were the geeks in a company that did something else, right? There were HR people, and there were legal people, and there were executives. They happened to work for a company, so I actually worked for a technology company, but I didn't really say that I worked for a tech company. It was almost like way back in the day, I didn't know I was Gen X. I didn't know I was Gen X until I started getting beat over the head about millennials. And like, oh, well, if they're millennials, what the fuck am I? Right, that's the same thing, right? The first enterprise company I worked for was actually a tech company. But I never said that. I literally never said I worked for a tech company because it just didn't really cross my mind. It's like, oh, I'm a regional support engineer for XYZ company. I travel around, do all this kind of stuff. But I never would have said I worked for a tech company because back then, if you go back 25 years ago, that's not how people thought. And like, there wasn't that cachet. It wasn't like, wow, you work for a tech company. It's just, you work for a company. Oh, I do HR at this company. Some people do HR for grocery stores. Some people do HR for tech companies, right? Anyways, the interesting thing that's happened over the past 25 years, right? There's this cachet, this sexiness to working for tech companies. So you get all these people that start working for tech companies that don't do our work. They don't do our work. Again, they're HR, they're legal, they're biz dev, business development, they're evangelist. Oh, fuck the evangelist. Anything worse than a fucking evangelist. I'm not quite sure what that is. But anyways, there are all these other people. And the interesting thing is you go to tech events or you go to other places and then they strut in. They're like, yeah, I work in the tech sector. And they start espousing their opinions. And you're like, you're HR. God bless. If I have a question about taxes for employees or I have a question about sexual harassment claims, I would definitely come to you. But maybe you want to fucking calm down about your opinions about AI or blockchain or anything else. Just because you work at a tech company doesn't mean you're fucking tech. And that's been expanded, right? Just how many employees have gotten hired, how many tech roles now are being filled, again, with people that don't really want to do technology. I was talking about this before with the whole BLM disaster, right? So with BLM and COVID and all that kind of thing, where you had so many employees and they were walking out during company time to protest the company. And the thing that I try to bring up with this, and beyond the snark and everything else, lots of snark, but beyond the snark, is just the idea like that was your thought process, right? When I'm out deploying technology, supporting technology, actually doing my fucking job, that shit doesn't cross my mind, right? It's interesting. Like here, like when I'm here and I'm creating these codes, I'm creating this example, and I'm trying to figure stuff out, right? Literally, I'll say, I'll be tippy-tap, right? And then my wife will come in. And she's my wife. Oh, wives, spouses. And she'll just like start fucking talking at me. Like, where are we going? What restaurant are we going to go to this weekend? Are we going to hire this particular fucking landscaper? Do you want your pants folded? And here's the thing, like, as somebody who actually does technology, I look at what? How do you want your pants folded? Yes, your pants. Yes, fold them. All right, because that's the thing. When you're working, like how technology functions, it's not human. It's not human, right? It's loops and it's connections, right? So when you get hyper focused into this shit, right? People are like, hey, do you want pizza or sushi for lunch? And you're like, And you ever have that time where you're like, and then you go back to time. And then the person is just standing there like, okay, fine. We're getting sushi. I want sushi. We're getting sushi. Like, Right? Because that's the thing. If you actually fucking do our work, not our job, if you actually do our fucking work, that's what happens to the brain. So if you have these people right? And they're protesting the company. And they have fucking Slack channels about Gaza. Now, to be clear, if you've heard me scream, you know my viewpoints about that shit show over there, right? But here's the thing. You have the brain power to do that on company time. You have the brain power, the time and everything else to go to an internal Slack channel about Gaza or God knows what, be able to read all the stuff that other people said, and then put in a quasi-intelligence response to that. That, my friends, is not somebody doing our fucking work. And this isn't about morals, and this isn't about ethics, and it's not about who you do or who you do not support. It's not whether you should protest or not. It's that if you're at work and you have the fucking brain power to create Slack channels about shit that has nothing to do with your company and be able to go back and forth, you ain't doing our work. You are simply not doing our work. And I think those people are going to get flushed out. So, as Trump says, it may be hard now, but obviously it's not hard because it's the best it's ever been. But it may be hard now. But it will be better in 2035, right? That's the big argument. One of the things I think I would argue for the tech sector right now is this is fucking brutal now. And a lot of good people, a lot of good technology professionals are going to get thrown out on the breadlines. But I do think, given another 5 years, you do some massive house cleaning for our industry, and I think it's going to be better just all the way around. The thing for you to be thinking about is basically how you get from here to there. And that's why you need to keep studying. And that's why you need to keep doing projects. And that's why you need to keep adding things to GitHub. That's why you need to ask your grandma or your brother or your sister or people you know, do they need help with technology projects? You have to keep going out there and you have to keep doing the work. Even if you don't have the job, you do need to still keep doing the work. So anyways, those are my thoughts. Gruesome new data on tech jobs. Brings a smile to my mouth. Oh, yay! Yay! Get the fuck rid of them. So anyways, what do you think about? What do you think about this? What do you think about all these people that want the tech job, but that don't want the tech work? When I talk about this, am I hitting a little too close to home? And if I am, that's just a warning sign for you, right? Again, doing the work is the pain in the ass. It needs to, especially with code and everything else, it becomes a taste. It becomes a feel, right? I think about that like when I had my computer repair shop and when I used to work on hardware. It's funny, like it's not even a joke. Like I would go up to servers, it's bizarre, and I would just run my hand across the servers. Not across the ports or anything, for just that physical connection with the servers and the equipment. And you just sit there and you just look at all the fucking lights and everything else. And the thing is from experience, from doing hundreds and thousands of times. You just sit there and you listen to the fans. You look at the shit blinking. You look at the problem that's being described in the work order or whatever else. Yeah, I think I know what the problem is. And then you go and fix the problem, right? But that comes from experience. That comes from being able. It's like being a sommelier, the wine tasters, right? As I say with wine, when I go to France, you know how I select my wine? I buy a bottle of red that costs more than €2. Seriously. I find in France, as long as you spend at least €2 on your bottle of wine, for me, you're gonna get a pretty damn good bottle of wine, right? Because I'm a computer geek, not a fucking wine snob, all right? But how do the sommeliers, how do they understand all these different flavors? Because they've tasted thousands and thousands and thousands of different wines, and they've tested, and they've done all of that kind of stuff, so they can be that good. Right? That's the same thing as being a technology professional. It's not simply about being in a class or getting a certification or whatever else. It's doing it again and 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 again. So they're like, oh, I've seen this problem before. I understand what's going on here. I can taste the problem. So anyways, there you go. Put your thoughts down below. And if you like these videos, give us a thumbs up. If you hate these videos, give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing, call me a dumbass, just be a real nutnik and put that strong American comment down there in the comment section. Do remember, I scream about the technology world in order to fund the Silicon Dojo, authorityless, gatekeeperless, free to use your hands-on technology education that empowers you to do what the hell you want to do in Durham, North Carolina. We just had a class on AI and web scraping. We're about to have a class on extending AI capabilities using REST APIs. We're going to have a class on Moondream for AI computer vision coming up. If you're interested in those classes and many more, take a look at silicondojo.com to see what our schedule is. If you want to help support that particular project, there is a donor box link down below. And with that, see y'all later.